Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday live stream. It's good to see you. It's good to be seen by you. And remember, folks, the question isn't, are you paranoid? The question is, are you paranoid enough? So with that out of the way, in just a few minutes, we'll be welcoming tonight's guest. Of course, I know you guys are all excited about it. I am too. But I do want to take a hot minute and remind everybody, first and foremost, if you don't know me, I, of course, am the Dungeon Delver, and I'm just a guy on the internet who brings you D&D content 5 nights a week, and then videos interspersed in, and sometimes I'll sneak one in on the weekend. You never can tell with me. But this show, like so many before it and so many after it, is brought to you by our friends at Hellabard Games. Hellabard makes the kind of adventures that they'd like to play, whether it's for Castles and Crusades 5th edition or the OSR. Old school is in play at the table with Hellabard Games, and you can find them on Drive-Thru RPG or on their website at hellabardgames.com, where they are currently having a sale of 50% off all of their in-print 5th edition modules. That's right, they've got everything from dismal swamps full of fierce lizard men to a dusty caravan desert trail full of adventure. Use the discount code 5EOOP at checkout to receive 50% off your purchase of their 5th edition modules. So, I hope everyone is having an absolutely swell evening. And if you're just stopping by for the first time and you haven't already, please do consider clicking that subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, because I like making them for you guys. So with all of that said, tonight's guest, if you don't know who tonight's guest is, well, you're going to find out. He's an awesome guy. He is an alumni of TSR, of Days Gone Past. He's created some of the most memorable adventures for classic D&D. And plus, he's just an all-around swell guy. Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's welcome the one, the only, Alan HAMMACK.
Hello.
How the heck are you?
Good. I had to show off my my T-shirt. This was a replica of one that from long ago, where a friend Matt Roberts had made to surprise me out at North Texas. And you really want to get Bill Meinhardt to do the story, because he's better at it than I am now, because he does the voices. But the background briefly was that when we decided to make a pilgrimage of wargamers and role players to the first Origins and Gen Con 9 and in that era of tournaments, we decided that we would try to get official state sponsorship from the state of Alabama, and we went ahead and printed the T-shirts up anyway, but yeah, we actually got a letter back from Governor George Wallace at the time, who approved our request for naming us the Alabama State Wargaming Team, and he politely declined our suggestion that the state may want to sponsor us with financially to ease the burden of college students and such trying to go to represent our state. Rah. We actually did very well, and somebody pointed out to me, said, "Did that appointment ever have an ending date?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." He said, "So you're still the Alabama State Wargaming Team?" I said, "I guess so, and probably the oldest continuous state official wargaming team in the country. So, yay."
That is awesome. I love that story. So you guys basically you're not just the foundational members of the Alabama State Wargaming team. You are the Alabama State Wargaming team.
Are and forever shall be, apparently. So
absolutely. So where's your plaque on the capstone? That's not a question to you. I think we should take this up with the regents there in Tuscaloosa. I mean, my God, if Bear and Nick and Wallace Wade can all get commemorated on the Walk of Champions, why not you guys?
Sure, yeah, that would be wonderful. I'm 100% behind any efforts you make, Bill.
Well, and I mentioned this before. Alabama clutch receiver Hale Henkes was a gamer, or is a gamer. He's unfortunately, I don't think he's really active on Twitter right now, but he is on LinkedIn, and he is a tabletop gamer. I think we could make a case for it.
Very good. Well, I think that would be a lot of fun. So,
well, let's hope so. Roll Tide. But Luther says that's it. Put Allen right next to Nick Saban's statue.
A similar statue rolling a D20 or something, right?
Something like that. That would be awesome. So anyway, first of all, please tell me I didn't give you the con crud, because you and I hung out at Gary Con, and when I got home and tested positive for the beer virus, I was like, oh God, please tell me I didn't give this to Alan too.
I don't believe that I had COVID. I never had a fever, but it felt like a 3 or 4 day cold to me. Fortunately, the symptoms didn't show up until the Monday. Unfortunately, Monday was the travel day for me, so I got to do all the airport and air travel with the stuffy head and running nose and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it was pretty minor compared to what a lot of people had. There was one Gary Con a few years ago where I got a norovirus, and that just knocked me flat on Sunday. I couldn't walk across from the bed to the bathroom. It was so bad for over half a day. That was the only convention that I ever actually had to cancel an event because of illness. So.
Well, I'm glad you didn't get this. We traveled fine. Like, I was okay for almost a week before it kicked in and really started getting. And I was like, oh, I talked so much at the con, I must have a little bit of a sore throat. And that was on like Saturday evening, and then Sunday, Colleen and I just did kind of an impromptu. Here's what we did on our trip stream, and I sounded a little rough and she sounded a little rough. And Monday morning I was just I failed my save, as the kids say. I was not in good shape, but I'm just glad that you didn't end up getting it, that I was not a vector.
Yeah, and I don't think so. I know that my friend Steve Winter had was out for over a week with stuff. And I see Luther is suggesting we try it again with Grandma Ivy, Kay Ivy, the governor. So she's pretty cool. That might work.
Make a statue of Alan holding a big D20 up like the Boll Weevil statue in Enterprise.
If only I could get one of those popcorn things from the Dungeons and Dragons movie. That would be about the right size for a statue.
Have you seen the movie?
I did. I enjoyed it. I was looking at it as a step back. Well, first, I don't get my feelings hurt by movies not being the same as books. Books are different than movies, or different from TV. It's a different narrative that you have to employ. And that being said, I had a good time, and I took a step back and was trying to look at it from the point of view of someone who was not a gamer. Would they enjoy the movie, or was it too in? And I think, it's a very accessible movie for non-gamers too. A good little adventure story.
Right on. And I haven't seen it myself. reserving my judgment. I'm not going to make a critique either way about the movie. I have expressed my displeasure about Wizards of the Coast and their shenanigans over
me too.
January and so on. But setting that aside, Heidi Gygax was talking to me about the movie. This was last week, I think. And she and Eric and the kids saw it, and she said Dad would have loved it. So
I think so, yeah. Well, I mean, it was, and it's a real modern movie, not the pile of steaming stuff that the first movie was. So yeah, but yeah, I liked what another person had suggested, which was, if you're mad at Wizards but want to see the movie, don't see it the first week, and then you don't add to their big tally about how successful the movie is, but you still get to see it. That's a decent compromise.
Sure.
So, but yeah, and I do think that the star Chris can make. He's a lovable character. I mean, he can make any character a lot of, make you want to empathize with him. And he had a lot of fun lines. So yeah, good stuff.
Well, right on. It's probably one of those they're going to want to try and wring as much out of it as they can. So I may catch it yet. I'm not going to rule out. I'm not going to rule out seeing it, or I can catch it on streaming.
Right.
But again, the more I hear from it, just observing it in a vacuum, setting aside feelings about Wizards of the Coast business and everything, people seem to say it is a perfectly okay movie. It's not an egregiously bad film.
No, it's not bad. It's a fun summer movie, and who cares if they mixed realms or picked a name from this one that's not in that one? I mean, except for whoever the author of whatever particular city got relocated was. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's okay.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I think ultimately it's like the meta, I think, is like D&D itself. It's like, hey, that table over there is having fun, but they're not they're not doing Greyhawk canon just exactly as I would do Greyhawk canon. Stop having fun, and no,
you're not having fun right the way that I want to have
fun right, exactly.
Right. Nah. That was the thing, and you were at Gary Con with me and got to observe at least one of the things that I was running. The thing that I took away from that is that, oh my gosh, my team did not win in the tournament, but they were all smiles. They had a great time, and they were incredibly hospitable to me afterwards during the convention, despite the way that I, ran roughshod over their characters. So
ran roughshod. You didn't even make them save versus magical fire in the Lake of Fire level, Alan. I mean, come on. You're going soft, man.
Yeah, well, it's conventions. I go a little softer at conventions, but not that much.
So for those of you who may not have heard me tell this story before, I was so bummed out when I found out that if I just caught up with you just like an hour before, I actually could have sat down and played in a game you were running. But I stalked Alan and tracked him down at the convention, and I think you probably had the best room. You had a quiet conference room away from the maddening crowd to run Ghost Tower. So Alan's running Ghost Tower of Inverness, and the missus and I finally located where he was, and we were sitting there kibitzing in quietly until now, if you're not familiar with Ghost Tower, there's these different environmental levels, and there's one that is a literal sea of fire, and a player fell off into the sea of fire, but they had a ring of protection.
Fire. Yeah.
Yeah, a ring of resist fire. And so he's going through and he's like, well, how can I climb out? And you were explaining it as like almost a syrupy, like almost a fluid plasma of heat and so on. And I just said, oh, by the way, Alan, shouldn't he be saving for all of his equipment? Because he's in the sea of fire. Shouldn't all that be having to make saving throws? And yeah, the groan from from the group of players there.
It was, but I had pointed out that the problem wasn't that he was in the fire. The problem was he was in the sea of fire in armor in 15 feet of molten, lava. It wasn't the fire that was hurting him, but he can't breathe that. So, he had to worry about swimming to the top and clambering out instead of. I said he's got enough to worry about. I don't need to bang his items too. So,
but no, it was a lot of fun to sit and kibitz in on that game, and I wish I could have gotten some actual playtime. I did shoot some pictures and some footage, being under the weather and everything. I haven't had the time to sit down and actually edit stuff together, but I do have some video of your Legends of Wargaming session that you ran.
Good.
So
it'll be fun.
Yes, that will be out there. So now that was part of a tournament that Paul Stormberg put together. Yes.
Yes. Paul Stormberg is the owner, creator of the Legends of Wargaming and Legends of Role-Playing. The Legends of Role-Playing being the big tournament in the style of the giant AD&D Open team tournaments of the past, Gen Con 9, 10 era. And I mean, it really is a very similar experience to that. And the Legends of Role-Playing is where he has a very nice large room at GaryCon, and it is full of games that were played in the early days. Chainmail, the jousting game. He had some wonderful scenery built for Boot Hill that I run on. Kevin Hendricks was running the Alamo. I know they will do the Siege of Badenburg sometimes, and the that straight chainmail, and the Fitz Society, the Fight in the Sky Society, Dawn Patrol games are there running continuously throughout the convention, and many others.
Yes,
anyway,
yes.
He runs that, and he has invested a lot of time and money into preserving the history by keeping the games alive and having old timers like us run some things for newer players to get to experience it.
Well, that's excellent. Now, did he design each of the scenarios you guys were running, or is that something you came up with?
No, he had designed the in my case part of the Boot Hill town, but he asked me what buildings I wanted to be in, and like what names I wanted on the buildings and that sort of thing. So yeah, that was so he's very good at that. And the sorry, I was trying to answer a question and be careful, but I wasn't doing a good job there.
Oh, that's okay.
So anyway, yeah, he has a huge trailer full of miniatures and terrain, and I don't know if you guys have any idea how much physical space it takes to be able to cart the terrain for a large wargaming table. But you know, he has a trailer full of things, and that room is run several hours a day. You know, it's a great effort.
Yeah, Paul does just an amazing job, and I'm so glad he gives you guys the ability to do, as you say, the old early Gen Con style events. And one of these days, I'll have my ducks in a row, and hopefully I'll be able to jump in one of those, because like your group was having an absolute blast.
Somebody asked a question a little earlier about who did the art for Day of Al-Akbar, and
yes,
I think that was Jeff Easley. So I was trying to confirm that. I couldn't get to a place to confirm it, but I think that was Easley. I'm not positive.
Okay. Luther wants me to do a deep dive on Day of Al-Akbar. Sure. I mean, there's an infinite pile of AD&D stuff I can do deep dives on at audience request, Luther. So, you know, never say never. I can absolutely get to it. And you know, being fortunate enough to be able to get some of you guys on board, you could help me out a little bit with that. But I actually, I was kicking myself at the end of the last time you were on the show, because I had meant to ask you a bunch of questions about the production of Greyhawk, not Greyhawk questions. Note the difference. about working on Greyhawk, and I was like, oh, we're out of time. So I saved those up, or at least I saved a few of them up.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're out of time. So.
Okay, so, well, that's it, folks. Thank you, Al. No, you're not getting away that easily. So, working on Greyhawk, was it? Did you volunteer for that, or was it literally just like Gary needs people to edit on Greyhawk? You drew the short straw. You're being voluntold.
The pool to pick from wasn't that large when we started. And I would say that I had the least on my plate at the time Gary decided it was time for somebody to start editing it, or perhaps it was Mike Carr that said we need to get started on this because Gary, you still haven't finished writing parts of it. You're delivering the little bits at a time, but we should probably go ahead and get started on the editing of it. And the art's going to take a long time with that map and the cover and all of the shields, the heraldry and things. So, but yeah, so I was delighted. It wasn't the very first project that I had there, but it was one of the earliest. So yeah, I was very happy to. And at the beginning of that, you know, I was given a stack of material that Gary had written, and you know, did my first edit through that, and you know, sent it back to him, and I said, yeah, Gary, there's, you know, about 40 countries named here, and you've given me material on 22, you know. And he said, I know, I'm working on it, you know. I went, okay, you know. So after that, it became kind of a, Gary, we need another chapter on Furion-D, you know, and so I would get little drips and drabs every week or two, or 3 or 4.
So when he would give you material, was there ever anything that came across your desk and you were just like, what in the world? This doesn't this isn't going to work at all. I've got to go back and talk to him about this. This doesn't make any sense. Was there ever anything that like you felt like I got to get the red pen out and it's going to be unpleasant?
Well, yeah, the red pen is, of course, the badge of the editor, and we always, had it with us whenever we were walking around the office, because who knows when somebody would hand us something and we needed to mark it up. But yeah, I mean, generally, I wasn't his language. Gary was not a very, he wasn't a bad speller, and his grammatical syntax was archaic and sometimes, cumbersome, but it was, that was his style. So we didn't have to change any of that. Now, I was starting to do cross-referencing. If he mentioned the, Duke of somebody here, that, and then that was, I wanted to make sure that we started some cross-referencing, that we weren't, in other words, continuity was one of the things I was taking notes on. There was nothing that he gave me that I said, ooh, you need to totally rewrite this. Mostly it was a case of, you need to expand on this. You brought up something that sounds like a lot of fun, but you dismissed it in one sentence. Let's go more on this.
Right on. And he took that in good stride, I'm guessing.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
He took that in good stride.
Oh yeah, most of the time. Well, there were times it was good humored, and there were times it was, grumpy. All right, let me see it, and then it was okay, I'll write more on this, and there were times he just, get out, So I mean, good days and bad days. I like to think that it wasn't the Greyhawk that was the issue. It was the other things that he was working on that were causing the bad days. So. Sure.
And that's maybe for another time. It's, I was fortunate enough in knowing Gary to know him at a time when perhaps there were fewer intense pressures on him. And a lot of, I met folks who knew him around the time you did, and they said, well, I met him and he was a complete jerk. And I'm like, was your business being stolen from you at that time?
Right. Bill, you knew him at a time that he wasn't having to deal with certain, people with names we won't have to deal with, from the original management team. So
yeah. So I always try and temper conversations when people are come at me with the Gary was a jerk stories, and I'm like, if under similar circumstances, can any of us say we would have been saints? I guess is what I'm kind of.
We all have good days and bad days, and that was the transition of a company from a bunch of gamers who were doing their hobby to everybody knows the path that it took. John Peterson's book does a good job of that, detailing that. So
yeah, and to be absolutely certain, both to the audience and moreover to yourself, I'm not like, ooh, let's have a dirty laundry session, Alan, and tell me all the bad stuff. That's not where I'm.
Yeah, I don't do that on air, so just. Nor
do I. So I just didn't want to lend you the impression that I was kind of like trying to go down that path conversationally, because I ain't, man. I ain't. I respect you too much for that, and we can focus on the good stuff. And speaking of the good stuff, one of my friends actually had actually not played Ghost Tower of Inverness, which is such a phenomenally fun module. But they mentioned something to me, and I gotta bring this up, because when I mentioned this to her, she was like, let me see if I can find this real quick. But it was a little bit about the history of Ghost Tower. Now, I've said it before, and I'll mention this again. I was very disappointed to find out you didn't mean Inverness, Florida, which is in north central Florida. But Inverness is one of those places like Jacksonville. Like every state has a Jacksonville or an Inverness in it. But for those who may not be familiar with it, can you relate a little bit of the Inverness story for some of our audience who maybe hasn't heard that?
Okay. First, I thought that it was just a cool name for a dungeon. When we started, our local Birmingham group started playing D&D, we quickly decided that everyone who plays should also be a DM, and then you could rotate around and let everybody share in the playing, and hopefully you get to play 4 or 5 times more than you had to run, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I was under pressure to well, I had a first starter dungeon that was based on a starting sketch by somebody else, and I filled in a couple levels. And after my crew pretty much cleaned that out, I was under pressure to have a new dungeon ready. And I had been listening to a weird radio show called the Fourth Tower of Inverness. I don't really recommend anybody listening to many hours of that, but it was strange. And I thought, oh, that title rolls off the tongue. And so I just took the name. It's going to be, the dungeon's going to be Inverness, and it will be, by a bay. And so I located on my world that way. And then when I got to TSR, there came a time when we thought it would be a good idea to do the competition modules, the C modules, the C series. Mm-hmm. The idea being, we would run a tournament, in my case at WinterCon in Detroit, and after the tournament, there would be a limited number of the copies of the module for sale, because what a great built-in audience, market. People who have just played the adventure would love to have a copy to take home and inflict on their friends. So we were just thinking this is a smooth business idea, and it turns out that it's a practical, manufacturing wise, it can cause a crunch, getting art ready and getting to the printers and stuff. So I got assigned. We came up to a deadline. I got. I'm not going to say the short straw, because they said, "Who can create a dungeon in let's say 6 weeks, whatever the short amount of time was?" I said, "I could adapt the one that I've got for my home campaign." And they said, "Okay, you're on. Start typing." And so that's what I did. And I said, okay. So I've got the dungeon. It's just called Inverness. And I had a huge mega dungeon, many levels underneath kind of thing going. And I said, that won't work for a tournament. Got to simplify it. And then I said, okay, back in that radio serial, there was a tower that occasionally appeared that was from a different dimension. Now, I'm not going to exactly do that. I'm going to think of a magical woo-woo reason for this to happen in a dungeon environment, and then I tied it to a goal that they had to get, because in tournaments, generally there's a MacGuffin that you've got to get to. You got to get it and get it out, or you've got to kill the big bad, or you have to get past X finish line. And this was a little bit of two of those three for the scoring. So
right on.
But it's amazing how many little articles and interviews I say, well, he named it after Inverness, Alabama, near Birmingham, where he grew up. I said, well, there is an Inverness neighborhood, yeah, just like there's probably one in every state in the country, except,
like I said, every state has a Jacksonville, every state has an Inverness. It's the way it is.
I mean, it's like, but in Scotland, the words mean, like, river lake. It's a common. It's like there's going to be a small lake, a fly lake, a blue lake in most states, and things like that. So, sure.
Mm-hmm. So the question that I want to know is, the original mega dungeon that you adapted it from, does that still exist?
It got sold in an auction, and there are rumors that that an adaptation of something that goes underneath will appear in a tournament in the future.
Interesting. Very interesting. And so that kind of dovetails nicely into the question, assuming this is a factual statement, but now that you have some free time, what's coming from you? Are we going to see some more published adventure stuff from you?
I hope so. I have fully retired from the mundane job, but had some health issues, and I had spinal surgery in November, and I've just got to say I'm mostly recovered from that, but the energy levels to write are not sufficient yet. I'm really hoping that I'm going to get that back up, because there's a couple of publishers that you would know that have basically said they'll print it when I write it, so I'm looking forward to having the energy to attempt that. Most of them are going to be module level, single adventure level things, but there's one largish project that they said they would do if I wanted to work on it, so we'll see.
Well, I hope so, and I can absolutely empathize with the energy levels to write. I mean, this COVID bug knocked me on my butt, and I've got stuff that's in the pipeline, and I'm not calling anyone out, but people, I think, sometimes say, well, if you're not feeling good, you can just sit behind the computer and write. I mean, there's no effort in that. Oh, yes, there is. I mean, I tried to push myself last week, and I mean, 300 words in, I was like, I'm going to go have a lie down now. I'm going to drink some orange juice and take some Tylenol and just lie down for a few minutes. And later that evening, when I woke up, I said, perhaps I'm not quite, So I completely get energy levels in writing. I completely understand that. Luther says, hey, Alan, make that new module, sign it, roll tide in the inner cover. I'll pay $50 for it. Well, right there, you got your first customer lined up.
Oh, well, I will, if you catch me at a convention and it's pretty easy, I will sign anything that you have, and including anybody else's name that you want me to sign to it. I'm easy.
I should have brought my hotel bill with me then. So I bought a copy of Assault on the Area of the Slave Lords, Alan, and also this triple form here. Don't worry about what it says.
Don't worry about what it says. Yeah.
And then he signed it, Errol Otis. But Will says best wishes on your ongoing recovery.
Thank you.
Let's see. Luther says, last time you were on, you gave a shout out to the D&D club at my school. Thank you again. The club went from 26 to 58 soon after.
I'll take credit for that. Sure.
We love that positivity. Will Mastretta again says, I played Ghost Tower for the first time recently. My feet got zapped trying to smash the soul gem, but got raised right after, so I'm counting that as a win.
That works for me. Yep.
There you go. There you go.
Besides, it's a party game. If the party got the gem, whether or not you got raised, it's still a win for the team.
Exactly. It's all about who survives and what's left of them at the end, right?
Right.
Let's see. I just don't want to miss any. Don't want to miss any questions. Will says, I write all the time. I can't imagine doing it when I had COVID. Yeah, I can't imagine it either. Like I said, 300 not great words last week, and it'll come back around. But Doomsword says writing is impossible at best. That should be in like bronze letters up on a plaque somewhere. Writing is impossible at best. By the way, those who are interested, my friend who had never played Ghost Tower of Inverness, she is a huge fan of radio serials. And when I started talking to her about the Ghost Tower of Inverness, she immediately said, you mean the fourth Tower of Inverness? And I was like, no, the Ghost Tower of Inverness. So she actually linked me to that radio serial back a few weeks ago when I was talking about you coming on the show. So those who are interested and want to scroll back through the fourth Tower of Inverness, which does not really bear on Alan's creation, but if you're so interested, you can find it there. Author Trace Richards, hello. But anyway, so I have to press you on this because you had mentioned your campaign setting before that is wholly and uniquely your own, and it sounds absolutely fascinating. Is that something you've considered publishing, or is that too expansive? I know there's a far cry between dungeon, 33 rooms, intro text, some illustrations, boom, you're done. And here's an entire world that's developed over 50 years.
Well, here's the thing. The short answer is probably not. And there are a couple of reasons for it. When we were doing our campaigns, we heavily allowed our favorite books to influence us. I mean, if you looked at my campaign map, you would see geographical names from at least 3 series by some of my favorite authors. I mean, I just took the names. Why not? We're just playing D&D.
Right.
And this goes back to World of Greyhawk. When I was assigned the editor, I was thinking, well, this might be, the short straw assignment like you picked, but I was thinking it's because why would anybody want to buy a campaign setting when you can create your own? I mean, you can create your own world. Why would you buy someone else's? I mean, clearly I was wrong on that. I missed that boat. But yeah, I mean, and so I was surprised by World of Greyhawk's success and the success of all of the other fantasy setting campaigns after that. More power to them. Mine's not going to be one, because if I changed all of the countries' names to other non non-names from existing books, it wouldn't have the same flavor to me. So.
No, I gotcha. I gotcha. Another question from Luther. Assault on the Area of the Slave Lords was the third in the series. Did you have to coordinate with the other authors?
Absolutely. Because A3, what we had, A1 was divided into two parts, each of which was a first round of the tournament. A2 was two parts, each of which was the first round of the tournament. A3, mine, was divided into two parts. The first part was a first round of the tournament. The second part was the semifinal round of the tournament. So what we had was 5 first rounds so that we could play one, I want to say Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, Friday morning, Friday afternoon, and then Saturday morning, or perhaps it was, it was all concluded and the semifinal was Saturday morning and the final would be Saturday night. Anyway, the point was each of those 5 rounds we had decided would be identical in what we would now call challenge rating. The term didn't exist then, but we balanced the number of hit dice, the total number of hit points of creatures, the threat. We rolled out averages. We didn't have computers to try to project average damage and things like that. We we rolled some dice and played it out. We tried to give each first round a different first round, but an identical number of challenge, number of encounters, number of hit dice faced, that sort of thing. And the reason we did that was because we had all played in tournaments where people who played in the afternoon session of the entry round did better than the people that played in the morning, and people that played in the evening session did better than either the morning or the afternoon, because word was getting out about what the tournament was. And people would say, oh, I better look up purple ooze or green dragon or something and see what the vulnerabilities are. And so we didn't want anything like that. So the first 5 rounds of the A series were all going to be different enough that there should be no advantage from round to round. They could talk about it all they wanted to. But yes, we coordinated. There were many nights at Mike Carr's apartment where the 4 authors would be sitting on the floor, tossing out ideas where we would be saying things like, okay, this is the next thing that I'm going to do. And then Harold and, Zeb would say, okay, I'm going to lower what I'm doing so it'll match what you've got here. And so we balanced that way. Yeah.
Now, in the design of the tournament modules, were there times when, at least early on, did you see patterns of behavior start to form in players that pointed towards a degree of predictability in the adventures, or something that maybe made you worry that notes had gotten out, so to speak?
Well, not in the A series. It worked exactly as we had planned it to. The most fun that we had was that in the semifinal round, Lawrence, who wrote the final round, had given me the impossible task of creating a Kobayashi Maru that they could not. I had to have all of the players lose no matter what they did, but I couldn't kill them. So, I had to have a trap where they were all captured alive, in it. And that took a little bit of thought and dare I say some DM cheating, on the side. So, because it doesn't matter what you do, you have to be a prisoner for the start of A4. So.
Right. Right. And it's not cheating when the DM does
Well, especially if the DMs are the designers. So.
Exactly. As I said, Gary once said to me, the only reason a dungeon master should ever roll the dice is because he likes the sound it makes when they hit the table. But that is some fascinating insight into the design process on those. What was your? This is so cheesy, but I this is again something that I wanted to ask you, and it just slipped my mind. But what of all the modules you did design for TSR, what was the one that you had the most fun creating?
Oh gosh, I probably Ghost Tower of Inverness, just because I had something to start. I was under pressure. I say I need time and energy to write nowadays. Well, there's nothing like being 22 or 23 and having that kind of energy and having a crushing impossible deadline and working around with a bunch of other highly intelligent designers to put the pressure on and get the juices going. So that was the most fun. And when I hit on the theme of the tower, the elemental theme, I went, oh, I'm going to have a lot of fun with this. And there are ways that I could redo it now, but I did have the most fun with that. Yeah.
Excellent. I can't recall I've only focused on the originals. I don't think there was a return to Ghost Tower. TSR.
Well, they're okay. I didn't write. Elisa Teague wrote one for Adventurers League, and it's a 5th edition.
Okay.
And it is called Return to Ghost Tower, and it's fun. I was really pleased that she did it. It was a nice homage. And a few years ago, I ran that at a convention just as kind of a change up and a test, and a test of my ability to run 5e.
Mm-hmm.
And people said, you've got to run both of them at the same convention. We want to be in both of them. And so I started offering that at most conventions. So it's another standard event that I run now. I like one of the comments. It said, those scenarios are so annoying. Characters don't realize they're attempting to fight their way out of an important plot point. So yeah. Yes, the plot point is the big hammer that will hit you over the head. So.
Yeah, and that I definitely think there's a different vibe. I mean, grabbing a published module or a series of published modules to run at your home table is something. I mean, you can blend in so many elements and take just as long as you want, but the frantic sense of purpose when you're at a convention, as you say, you got to hit him over the head with a mallet. It's like, no, we don't have time to explore your 5-page backstory. we have 30 rooms to get through. It's 2:00 in the afternoon, and at 6:30, Alan would like to go to dinner. So
listen, as a DM, what I will say, I will listen to you talk as long as you want to. However, you now have 2 hours and 42 minutes left, so, and the rest of the players usually get the hint there and push them in. So,
yeah.
By the way, for those that hadn't heard it, the other thing about the no-win scenario that I had at A3, where you wake up as a prisoner, was that everyone who played in that semifinal round thought they had failed because they were all taken prisoner. And so they kind of glumly dragged themselves to the results board, to find that they had actually gone through, into the finals. how did that happen? We lost, you know. Well, you were supposed to lose. So.
That's nice. That's pretty awesome. Let's see. Will says, you can always try the in media res method. Just have them start waking up in chains and say the last thing they remember was drifting off to sleep in their beds. The classic.
But that in Ghost Tower of Inverness, they start in chains. So, you know, I've already done that. So.
There you go. There you go. And just clap them in irons. Like I say, you know, it's a very different jam when you're at a convention. But as you say, let the players run their mouths all they want. Just start talking in numbers. That will motivate them. You know.
It does. I do want to add a little aside from a couple of years ago. The Return to Inverness starts. You know, it starts with a description of the, you know, change, shackled. This is like some kind of horrible deja vu. And I had started reading that. I said, change, shackled. And one lady that was playing said, or as I like to call it, Saturday afternoon. So, so we have a lot of fun.
That's great. I'm usually shackled in front of the TV on a Saturday afternoon if it's between September and January. But all right, everybody, just relax for a hot second. Who do you figure, Milrow or Simpson? They say Milrow is throwing lasers, but I don't know. He wasn't super accurate. Who do you figure?
I think that Belichick will probably pay another visit, and they'll consult, and we'll figure it out.
Dang it! I really wanted a concrete. I wanted to say, Bill, it's gonna be Simpson or it's gonna be Milrow.
It'll be okay. It'll be okay no matter who it is. I mean,
I know. I trust the process.
Yes, there you go. Exactly.
Another question from Luther, who says, do you think Goodman Games might one day make Ghost Tower in one of its reincarnated? Have they approached you about anything like that?
They haven't, but it would. I mean, I believe that it would have to be under a modified title, and you know, a lot of that IP belongs to WotC. You know, I would say that you might have something, you know, like the Most Tower of Inverness or the Ghost Tower of Farkness or something like that, you know, and maybe you'll get the idea. But I did do one project for Goodman Games. I like them a lot. I was one of the contributors to how to write a module that doesn't suck. So.
I need to look into that. I could always use a little bit of a whetstone on my stuff. I think I need an editor more than anything. I my sincerest apologies to past and future editors who ever have to break out the red pen on my stuff, because man. But yeah, the Goodman Games 5e conversions, I would, because you've got baskets of stuff about the history of Ghost Tower that I'm sure a lot of people would love to read up. I mean, even if whether you touch the 5th edition stuff or not, and I've got a few of them on the shelf over here, the Goodman Games reimagined books are just chock-a-block with lots of great info about the history of the stuff that's written. So I would love to see one for Ghost Tower. Joe Goodman, if you're listening, get on it.
Yeah, it's not like I'm hard to find. So
yes, and that's very thankful for that little
Alan in yes, Fairhope, Alabama. There you go. Fairhope Amber. That's the local beer.
Excellent. Well, I had mentioned when we had been doing some deep dives on old issues of the Dragon, just to, kind of pass the time here on the show on nights when we don't have excellent guests such as yourself, and it's just me running my mouth ceaselessly. Grab a PDF of an old issue of the Dragon and start looking through. And the old mapping the dungeon feature, wouldn't you know, there's at least 3 or 4 of those that have got your contact info in them. So you were you were a DM for hire from the get-go.
Yep. I mean, it's hard to explain to the younger generation, but the little classified ads in the general and the Dragon were how we found other people. I mean, even other local people to play with. So
Excellent. Where did you get your hands on a copy of Dungeons and Dragons first?
I got my I got my first copy with the gift certificate that I won for winning Best Mage at the AD&D Open at Gen Con 9. I walked it over to the TSR vendor booth and said, now that I've won the tournament, I'd like to buy a copy of the rules. And so here's my certificate. We had the first person that had run the DM, been a DM, we found it at the Homewood Cycling Hobby Shop. So a bicycle and hobby shop had a small section of Avalon Hill games, and then thought that Dungeons and Dragons was just another war game that they'll put in, and some nerd would buy it in 2 or 3 months and they'd get rid of it, So, and it was one of these businesses that never really, well, we keep selling those, we should keep restocking them, but they never expanded anything. It was like, we're a bicycle shop, so.
I'm reminded of I can't remember if I just heard this is apocrypha or if Gary mentioned this directly, but something to the effect of when they printed up the original 1,500 sets of OD&D, it was literally, they were like, that's all we'll ever need. We will never sell out of these. We will just forever, somebody will buy 1, somebody will buy 2, and they were like gone by March.
Yeah, you just don't know. I mean, that's why it's a business. If there was somebody that could predict sales that well, they'll have a steady job.
Indeed.
I see a pretty open-ended question there about the future of AD&D after the Hasbro OGL speed.
Yeah, Ken X says, where do you imagine the future of AD&D, D&D going after the Hasbro OGL speed bump?
Well, there are 2 things. Nobody can ever stop me from playing AD&D, D&D with the books that I have, the material that I have. I mean, I can keep playing that forever, no matter if I never buy another item from WotC again. I have many, many friends in the independent press and small publishers that whose livelihoods depend on the OGL or the ORC or whatever it's going to be in the future. I support their endeavors with Project Black Flag and anything else that's going to be an open or substitute kind of game. I'm not eager to learn, go through the learning curve of a bunch of new games, but if I'll be okay if I don't have to play, a certain name version of a certain game anymore. There are other fish in the sea, and some of them are very good fish writers. I'm losing the metaphor here, so, but you get my point.
I do.
There are many really talented small and independent publishers out there, and a lot of fun can be had. I've been through, corporate BS in gaming once again in the 80s. I don't necessarily want to go through it again. That being said, I have got one good friend who's still at WotC, so I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to unfriend them or any of that, but because most of the people in the content end of D&D at WotC had nothing to do with this fiasco.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the things early on that I latched onto. I did a video on this. The rank and file in Wizards of the Coast were told at I think it was at 11 o'clock in the morning before Wizards of the Coast released this. They had exactly this much time to prepare for what corporate wizards wanted to do. So I've said it before, don't burn yourself up. Not right. You obviously, but anyone listening, don't burn yourself up over getting mad at the average man on the street at Wizards of the Coast. They're just people who want to play D&D just like you and I.
Now, here, I will say one thing from what I've seen about that kind of odd creators, workshop thing that they had a week or two ago, where the people there weren't really creators, and it looked like they were kind of springing their version of the VTT, on. And I kind of got the sense of one VT to rule them all, one VT to find them. It's okay, but D&D to me is not people in a room staring at their computer screens. Okay. That's what we used to call a LAN party. You've got computers wired up to each other playing a game like that. That's not D&D or our fantasy role playing. We want to be around the table. You might have something to assist you with the math or the crunching, but it's rolling dice and laughing at people and making corny jokes and laughing when they do something outrageous. So
yeah, no, and I firmly agree with you. I mean, that it was kind of, frankly, not to overstate it, depressing, that shot of everyone sitting there with their MacBooks and their heads down, and I'm like, y'all, we got these,
right?
We got these funny shaped plastic things, and if you absolutely positively have to have a miniature, well, we got those too. And I can't fathom. Now, I think COVID did a number on a lot of people's expectations about what D&D is and what it can be. And honestly, I thought the virtual tabletop was a savior for a lot of folks. They're just like, well,
me too.
We go on indefinitely, and that was my one social thing a week, or two social things a week, or whatever, and it's gone now. It's been taken from me. And I immediately started doing this whole thing, live streaming, to tell people, don't give up on your groups. There's these virtual tabletops. But I fear now that it's kind of become ingrained that, no, I have to have a computer screen and I have to have a chat app. And I'm like, no, you can actually sit in a comic store with somebody or at their house, and you don't need that. I mean,
it's a different kind of game. I'm now 3.5 hours from the majority of my gaming group. There's another guy who's 5 hours in a different direction, but we appreciate the virtual tabletop for getting us to be included with our old group, and we don't have to lose touch with that. And but if I'm in the same town, I'm going to be there out around the table with them. So
yeah. I mean, like, would GaryCon, any North Texas Gen Con, would any of that be nearly as fun if it was just people quietly pecking away on their on keyboards?
no, and you don't get the atmosphere, you don't get the fun, the energy of being around that many other people. If you're at a game convention, you're home, you are there with your people, and you see wonderful cosplayers and fantastic costumes and vendors with elaborate tables and that you can game with, and art and miniatures and of course dice and everything you can imagine. It's just a wonderful atmosphere. And then every night in the bar, in the lounge, it's full of people. It's happy noises, man. This is not, it's people. We're with our people. So
Yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And to go, what legacy will virtual tabletops have? I mean, you go to Noble Night or any number of vendors who are there at GaryCon, not just Noble Night, but guys with copies of old books and modules, or even if they were reprints, like, hey, I remember that I lost my copy. I left it on a bench on campus back in 1985, and now I can get a copy again. I mean, true, you'll never lose it if it's just a virtual digital thing. But on the other hand, did you ever really have it? You know what I'm saying? And I mean, the physicality of it, the tactile sense of picking up a handful of dice or a well-painted miniature or a not painted miniature, as the case may be.
And I do want to comment. RPG Grandma says, you don't get the food. We cook and jump up, down, and high five. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
The person that hosts our in-person games, Diane, bakes fresh bread for us, when we're there. So, oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yeah. I mean, that's, it's like my co-host says, the order that you do your gaming is people, snacks, setting, and system. People and snacks. Their order first. People, snacks, setting, system. And you don't get that if everybody's face down in a $2,000 MacBook.
Right. And if people think that's fun, fine. That's their thing. I'm just saying, it's not our thing. It's okay if you can't get together to do that, but if you have the choice, why not roll some dice and laugh and jump up and down and drink and eat with your friends.
Exactly. We got a couple of questions here. One's right where the rubber meets the road. Robert Phillips says, the electric goo trap room, how did that come around?
That was I want to say, to the best I can recall, that was in response to something in one of the other modules having a similar effect on some people, and I wanted to duplicate the effect and the potential damage, but still give them a way out. I also wanted to, there's a good, if I recall, there's a good magic item down there. I just, you got to pay the piper to get the magic. So,
right. And little pointed question from Luther says, weird question. It would not be a question at all just 5 years ago. Has there ever been any hostile complaints about the name of your module, Day of Al Akbar, from activists?
No, but it's one of those things where I obviously couldn't name it that in today's world and hope that it would sell. But that was a freelance module after I had been cut from TSR, and I always try to look for things that haven't been done to death in previous adventures. And so I thought, okay, for the MacGuffin for this one, let's get an artifact. Now they've done various of the powerful, let's make me powerful type artifacts and things. How about something that would not make powerful, but could only be used for community good? And I remembered the Cup and Talisman of Al Akbar from the original D&D treasure books. And I thought, okay, I think this is even more fun than the apparatus of Qualish, because we get to have something that's a healing thing, a curing thing. And so as a plot hook, well, great, we're going to have a countrywide plague. That's going to be the thing that pushes our heroes into action. So it felt tailor-made to do that. Could I name it that now? No, I don't think I could, and I seriously doubt that WotC would name a module that nowadays. So
yeah, I think that wouldn't slide. And that name aside, some of the overreaction, it's been just kind of baffling. You guys wrote a great module about taking down slavers, right? Yeah, I mean, that whole series, you get the satisfaction of crushing them at the end. If you
like slavers, come on.
Yeah, exactly. But Wizards of the Coast is like, no, you can't mention slave. They're bad guys.
Yeah, well, they want to take away half elves too. So,
yeah, I did a video on that, and what even is the thought process? That's not a direct question. Obviously, but I mean, how is that what they call horseshoe theory? You go so far around from virtue signaling that you become as bad as the people you're virtue signaling against, or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. It was so it's so far away. I mean, back to your original point. I don't know how you get to the point of saying, well, slavers, how can you argue against fighting that? I don't know. There was nothing in any of our modules that said, wow, slavery is fun, you ought to try it sometime. No. That's obviously not what anybody said. We were fighting it. We were fighting it was okay. Simpler times. Most of our modules, we were heroes fighting evil. So
yeah, and that's, I mean, it's fundamentally you have to have evil to fight against, right?
Without darkness, you can't tell about light, and vice versa, right? There's
it's just it's kind of baffling. Tulowit says he's going to write a campaign based on seeking out the talisman, but my players would have known it was a trap. So let me see here. I don't want to miss anyone's questions, so I'm just Luther said the only thing worse than slavers are half slavers. That's like double evil.
I'm going to have to propose that to Harold and Lawrence and Zeb. We'll see if we can do something for the 50th anniversary next year. So
I would hope so. I would rather hope so.
The half slave lord series.
Half slave lord series. That would be A.5, A.25, A.075. just keep dividing them down.
Yeah, we could probably get somebody to publish that.
I think you'd have people lined up wanting to publish that. RP Gamer Pro says the best way to defeat slavers is in the combat wheelchair. You guys are just trying to get me demonetized. Oh, was Bill going to make money on this stream? No. Nope. We're going to fix that. Corporations want everything muddy gray to cover their own unethical and immoral and exploitative behavior. Harsh, but probably not too far off the mark, Jack. But on to more positive things. So you've got some stuff hopefully in the pipeline. And oh my God, Jeremy, shame on you. Jeremy super chatted me, so I got to put this up. How do we get D&D on the next can of Bud Light? We were encouraged.
I'm with Dave Barry. Light beer just isn't for me. Okay, this is nice amber beer. It's a good dark, got a great bite. I like reds and browns like Newcastle and Guinness. So that's beer. Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, D&D might fit perfectly for Bud Light. So.
Harsh, but I'm not going to disagree with it.
I mean, in today's world, yeah, right.
In today's world. So when I went to GaryCon for the first time in 2018, it was the first time I'd ever had New Glarus spotted cow. Man, that's good. Man, that spotted cow is delicious.
It is very good. And New Glarus is one of those breweries that doesn't export beyond the state. So
yeah,
if you're going to take it back, you got to pretty much drive up there and haul it back. So
yeah, it's an unfortunate reality. Like back in 2018, I was like, oh man, that spotted cow was great. I'm just going to dial up Total Wine, which it's like a huge beverage superstore. I'll just dial up Total Wine and no, you won't. I can get a keg. Like they would sell me a keg. They would ship a keg from Wisconsin to Florida. And I'm like, I don't know if I can explain to Colleen why I need the refrigerator for about 6 weeks. I don't think as you met Colleen, as charming and as wonderful as she is, I don't think she would understand that, Alan. So
I think she is a charming and understanding woman, but you may be correct there, Bill. So
yes, I think if I want any spotted cow, I'm going to have to get it straight from the taps up. And by the way, if you haven't been to Lake Geneva, audience, there's hot, cold, and spotted cow, or how the water taps work in Lake Geneva. So don't I wish? But I had another beer question, but I guess it went away. It must not have been that important. So what would one have to do to get Alan down to Florida for a Florida convention? Hypothetically,
pretty much my requirements are the same. Hotel, badge, and transportation. So.
Right on. I gotcha.
Yep. But I would love to come visit you sometime. As a matter of fact, in about a week, I'm heading up to Massachusetts for the Rising Phoenix Game Con up there in one of the, I think it's Milford, Massachusetts, one of the small towns near Boston. But my good friend Matt Roberts from the Yield School Tavern is sponsoring my trip up there, and we're going to have a lot of fun. He has a wonderful little dungeon room where he plays. He hosts games, and I've run for him up there before. But the the ceiling is full of various types of beer mugs and steins on hooks on the ceiling. Reach up and get one to bring down whatever you like. The dragon head mug. But of course, Providence and Boston have their own share of craft breweries too. So I will have fun.
Excellent. I remember now what I was going to say about the spotted cow, though, and I just want to mention this before I forget it again. I made the mistake when I was over at Heidi Gygax and her husband Eric Garland. There was a fellow sitting to my left, and I've gone blank on your name, sir. I apologize, but he did not care for spotted cow. I know, I was shocked. And so I looked at Heidi and said, well, whatever he doesn't want to drink, I will. Oh, man. I see that. She just kept... Heidi is an excellent hostess. She is a wonderful, wonderful lady. Every time my bottle would empty, a new one full with a cap off would magically appear in front of me. So... yeah, Heidi kept him coming cold and fast at the game that she was running there at her house.
A good Wisconsin hostess, yes.
A great Wisconsin hostess. You watch out now. She runs a pretty good D&D game herself.
I have played in her D&D game. Thank you very much. Yes.
Have you? That's awesome. What was it? Was it the what was it?
It was the princess ones with where the children were playing and all of the adults were along, just basically bodyguarding the children, because the children have characters much more advanced than we are, and we're just dying like flies, and then they delightfully get to stamp our character sheet with you've been killed by the Gygaxes. So yes.
I survived. I actually, my halfling magic user made it out of their. They ran Till Death Do Us Part for us on Sunday, and I made it out alive. But they were ruthlessly effective dungeon masters, the pair of them, and excellent hosts. So nothing but praise for them. Someone asks, let's see. Are you headed to Huntsville next week for Pop Culture Con? Games are open over 3 days. That's Orbital Air asks.
Next week is when I'm heading up to Massachusetts. So,
okay. All right.
And
so
Huntsville used to be 2 hours away, and now it's about 5.5 or 6 hours away. So it's a longer journey.
I see.
I'm at the other end of the state now.
I gotcha. So there you go, Orbital Air. Are you doing North Texas?
Yes, we'll be at North Texas and then at GameholeCon in Madison. Both. It is really funny. It always seems to be about the time I'm concentrating on getting ready for an upcoming convention within a week or so is when the next convention starts to say, okay, now we're open for, if you want to play games, this is how you can get your tickets. And then the convention 6 months down the road, Gamehole is saying, okay, now we're ready for you to submit events, everything at once. And it's a cycle, because I'll get to North Texas and then probably, GaryCon will be starting to ask me about events by then. So.
Right on. Trace says, I'm digging that background behind you, Alan. Yes, the pirate ship, quite lovely.
I found that for a sea adventure that one of my DMs was running for us. I thought it would be very very appropriate. So yeah, it's cool. And also I'm down in Fairhope on Mobile Bay, and it's kind of suited.
Oh, so you're not that you're actually technically not that far from Florida.
We're pretty close to Pensacola. Yeah, less than about an hour. I usually fly out of Pensacola Airport. So,
right on. Now, I know you just laid out how busy you are, but I will extend the invitation. We do have a virtual con that we're doing this year. I haven't landed on a date yet. I just don't want to do it the same weekend as NTRPG because no one will come if I do that. But I will get you the information if you'd like to pop into one of the channels once I get it going and give it a look-see.
Very good. If no conflicts, I will see what we can do.
Excellent. I will pay all of your travel and rooming expenses rather, Alan, for the virtual con.
Well, there you go. Who can ask for anything more? So.
See my people about it.
All right.
So I think we're up at about 90 minutes now. So you probably have some stuff you want to do. I'm just checking to see if there's any other questions. If anyone has any questions, now is your chance to ask the mighty Alan HAMMACK. Although I'm sure you'll join us again, right? I mean, I hopefully haven't put you
sure.
Coming back on the show. Let's see. Alrighty, so I guess we'll go ahead and wrap there, and I want to thank everybody for their wonderful questions. Thank you for the super chat, trying to get us in trouble, Jeremy. That was a lot of fun. I've known Jeremy for a minute or two, and I just let me just say your mother and I are very disappointed.
But
anyway,
I think that the half slavers has given me a whole new topic of conversation for my my author friends and I. We'll see what we can do.
I expect a shout out if you guys publish against the half.
Sure. Perhaps a short parody run. So
yes, indeed. So thank you everyone for being here tonight to ask your great questions of Alan.
Thank you, everyone,
for being here, for being a guest as always. And I will be back tomorrow night. We'll probably do some Dragon Magazine deep dive, and then Friday night we're gonna do a live Let's Play of Gamma World, as we often do on Fridays around these parts.
Now, hang on, Bill. I will say the reason that you very nicely let me do this tonight instead of tomorrow night was that I said, tomorrow night is the 20th anniversary of Return of the King, and it's out in theaters, and I need to go see that on the big screen again. So I'm going to be geeking out tomorrow night with Return of the King. So extended edition. Yes.
Excellent. Oh man, take a seat cushion.
Well, the good news is I know when I can go pee now. So yeah, so can make several trips out.
You can schedule around that.
There you go. Yeah, I've heard that speech before. I've got the DVDs, but yeah, so it's the big screen, man. You gotta support it. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Take care, Alan. And thank you, of course, to the audience as always. You guys are awesome, and we'll see you around the bend. Peace.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.